Text: I'm Dr. Marcus Chen, and I died in my own emergency room. What Jesus revealed to me in those moments didn't just save my life. It showed me how to fight forces you can't see, forces that are hunting you right now. And there's one word that makes them flee in terror. I'm going to tell you what it is. But first, you need to understand what I saw. I spent 15 years as an emergency physician. I've watched hundreds of people die. I've held hands as patients took their last breath. I've called time of death so many times the words became mechanical, clinical, just another procedure in a long shift. I never believed in those near-death experience stories. Honestly, I thought they were hallucinations. Oxygen deprivation, the brain's last desperate attempt to make sense of shutdown. I was a man of science. I dealt in facts, protocols, measurable outcomes. I saved lives. What happened after? That wasn't my department. The afterlife wasn't real to me. Heaven and hell were metaphors. Demons, ancient superstition. I had CT scans and blood work and defibrillators. I had evidence-based medicine. That was my religion. I was wrong. It was a Thursday night, late shift. The kind where the fluorescent lights make everything look sick and the coffee tastes like despair. We'd already had 3 traumas come through the doors. A motorcycle accident, a stabbing, a cardiac arrest that we couldn't bring back. I was exhausted, but that's the job. You push through. You compartmentalize. You save the next one. I was leaning over a patient middle-aged man, possible MI when I felt it. A tightness in my chest, sharp, radiating down my left arm. Classic presentation. I knew exactly what it was. And I ignored it. Classic doctor mistake, right? We're the worst patients. I told myself it was stress, muscle strain, maybe some acid reflux. I dealt with worse. I just needed to finish this case, then I'd sit down for a minute. The pain got worse. Crushing now, like someone was standing on my sternum. My vision started to tunnel. I could hear my colleagues' voices getting distant, muffled, like I was underwater. And then I collapsed. 1 second I was trying to save a patient. The next, I was the patient. My team was surrounding me now, ripping open my shirt, attaching leads. Someone was doing compressions. I could see it all happening from above. I was watching my own code blue. I watched them shock me once, twice. I saw Sarah, one of our best nurses, crying while she pushed medications through my IV. I saw Dr. Patel, my colleague for 10 years, sweating as he barked orders. And I felt nothing, no pain, no fear, just this strange, detached curiosity. So this is what it's like. Then I started moving, not walking, not floating exactly, just moving away from my body, away from the chaos of the ER into darkness. But it wasn't scary darkness. It was peaceful, quiet. The first real quiet I'd felt in years. Ahead of me, there was light, not harsh like the ER lights. This was warm, golden. It radiated something I'd never experienced before, pure, unconditional love. And I wanted it. God, I wanted to reach it so badly. Every step toward that light, I felt lighter. The weight of 15 years of trauma, of failed resuscitations, of telling families their loved ones were gone, it was all lifting off me. I felt clean, free. I was going home. The light was getting brighter, closer. I could almost hear music. Not like any music on earth. It was like the universe itself was singing. Colors I'd never seen before were swirling in that light. My medical brain tried to make sense of its synesthesia, temporal lobe activity, but even those explanations felt hollow. This was real, more real than anything I'd ever experienced. And then I felt them. The temperature changed. Not cold exactly, just wrong. Like the air itself had turned sour. I became aware of movement in my peripheral vision. Shadows that shouldn't be there. Shapes that didn't quite make sense. I wasn't alone. At first I tried to ignore it. I kept moving toward the light. But the presence grew stronger, more insistent. I could hear whispers now. Multiple voices layering over each other. Speaking words I couldn't quite make out but somehow understood. Worthless, failure, fraud. I turned my head slightly. And that's when I saw them, figures, moving in the darkness around me. They weren't trying to hide anymore. They were circling, watching, waiting. These weren't angels. My medical mind kicked in again, desperately searching for an explanation. Hallucination, hypoxia-induced paranoia. my dying brain creating threats because that's what evolution programmed us to do. But even as I thought these things, I knew they were lies. These things were real. The figures became clearer. Their faces, I don't have words for what I saw. Human features, but distorted, twisted, like someone had taken a person and broken them into something else. Something that remembered being human but hated it. And they were looking at me with such malevolence, such hunger. Then they started speaking, not in whispers anymore, clear, direct, and they knew me. Marcus Chen, we've been waiting for you. They knew my name. They knew my sins. Every lie I'd told, every patient I'd failed, every moment of pride when I'd played God in that ER. They recited my shame like a prosecutor reading charges. You think you're going to that light? Look at what you've done. Look at who you really are. And the worst part? They were right. Every accusation, every ugly truth they spoke, it was all true. I'd been arrogant. I had been cold. I'd let my ego run that ER like it was my kingdom. I'd ignored my wife, neglected my kids, worshipped my career. You don't deserve the light. You belong to us. I felt it then, not just emotional weight, physical weight, like hands were grabbing me, pulling me away from the light, down, into darkness that was no longer peaceful. I tried to fight, tried to move toward the light, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed, frozen by the truth of what they were saying. Every word felt like chains wrapping around me. This was hell, not fire and brimstone. This was something worse, being confronted with every ugly thing you've ever done, every person you've hurt, every selfish choice, and being told you deserve to suffer for it forever. And I believed them. My medical brain had completely shut down now. No more rationalizations, no more scientific explanations. I knew exactly what these things were, demons. These were demons, and they had me. I could feel myself being pulled further from the light. The warmth was fading. The music was disappearing. All I could hear now were their voices. All I could see were their faces. All I could feel was their hatred. And my shame. Oh God, my shame. They were feeding on it, growing stronger from it. Every memory they forced me to relive, every failure they made me see, it was like fuel for them. They were gorging themselves on my guilt. I couldn't fight. I couldn't move. I couldn't even speak. But in that moment, in the absolute lowest point of my existence, I did something I'd never done in my entire life. I'd never been religious, never prayed, never asked anyone for help, human or divine. But in that moment, when I had nothing left, when I was being dragged into darkness by beings that wanted to devour my soul, I called out, just one word, barely a thought, more like a desperate gasp from the deepest part of my being. Jesus, help me! And everything changed. The demons, I felt them recoil, like they'd been burned. Their grip on me loosened. I heard them hissing, shrieking, not in anger, in fear. They were afraid of that name, of what it represented, of who I'd just called to. The atmosphere shifted. The oppressive weight began to lift. The darkness started to retreat. And the light, that beautiful golden light I'd been moving toward, it got brighter, closer. I took a breath. The first real breath I'd taken since I'd collapsed in that ER. And I turned back toward the light, away from those twisted faces and accusing voices. But the demons weren't gone. Not completely. I could still feel them there, watching, waiting. And I knew, somehow I just knew, that what happened next would determine everything. Would I make it to the light? Or would they drag me back into the darkness? What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about spiritual warfare, about the battle for our souls that's happening right now, all around us, invisible but absolutely real. My voice was still echoing in that darkness. Jesus! The word hung in the air, and I felt ridiculous. A physician, a man of science, screaming into the void for a deity I wasn't even sure existed. But that cry wasn't logic. It was survival. It was desperation. It was the last thing I had left. And then everything changed. The atmosphere shifted. I can't describe it any other way. It was like the air itself became different, thicker, charged. The oppressive weight of those demons didn't disappear, but something else entered that space. Something that made them recoil. Light broke through the darkness. Not harsh, clinical light like in my ER. This was warm, living. It moved with purpose, and as it grew brighter, I heard the demons shriek, not in triumph anymore, in fear. They were backing away from me. And then I saw him. Jesus materialized before me, and I'm telling you right now, there are no words in any medical journal, any scientific paper, any language on earth that can capture what I witnessed. Beauty beyond description. Power that made those demons look like insects. But what struck me most wasn't his majesty. It was his eyes. There was no condemnation there, only love. Pure, overwhelming, undeserved love. Here I was, a man who had spent his career dismissing faith as psychological comfort, who had rolled my eyes at patients who said they'd pray for healing. And he was looking at me with such tenderness that I wanted to weep. The demons were still there, circling, but keeping their distance now. Jesus turned to them, and his voice carried an authority that made the darkness tremble. You have no claim on him. One of them, bolder than the rest, hissed back. His sins, his blasphemies, he denied you, he mocked your followers, he belongs with us. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but I couldn't, because they were right. I had done all those things. I had lived my entire adult life as if God didn't exist, as if faith was for the weak-minded. What defense did I have? Jesus spoke again, and his words cut through everything. His sins were paid for. It is finished. But he didn't believe, another demon shrieked. He didn't follow. He has no right to call your name. Jesus looked at me, then back at them. But he did call my name, and I always answer. Something broke inside me. This was grace. Real, unearned, scandalous grace. I didn't deserve this. I hadn't earned it. I had done nothing to merit this rescue. But here he was anyway. Jesus turned to face me fully, and when he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. Marcus, you need to understand something. I nodded, unable to speak. These demons, they have limited power in the spiritual realm. They can't force anyone to follow them. Their only weapons are lies, accusations, deception, and shame. That's all they have. I found my voice, shaky as it was. How do I fight them? I don't know how to do any of this. A smile crossed his face. You already used the weapon. You spoke my name. I blinked, confused. That's it? Just your name? Not just my name, Marcus. Do you know what my name means? Do you understand the authority it carries? I shook my head. Jesus gestured toward the demons, still writhing at a distance. At my name, every knee shall bow. Every knee, Marcus, in heaven, on earth, and under the earth. My name isn't a magic spell. It's not an incantation. It's authority. It's the declaration that I am Lord, and I have already won the victory over these forces. He paused, letting that sink in. Watch. Jesus turned to me with an expression of such confidence, such peace. I want you to command them. Use my name with authority. My heart hammered. I don't know if I can. Try. I swallowed hard. My hands were shaking. My voice came out as a trembling whisper at first. In the name of Jesus Christ. Louder, Jesus encouraged. I took a breath. In the name of Jesus Christ. Leave. The effect was instantaneous and absolute. The demons shrieked, a sound of pure terror and rage, and they fled. Not slowly, not reluctantly. They scattered like roaches when you flip on a light, disappearing into the darkness beyond. I stared in shock. They have no choice, Jesus said. That's the one word, Marcus. My name, Jesus, and I give this authority to all who believe in me. He stepped closer, his presence filling me with a warmth I'd never known. But you must know me, not just know about me. Do you understand the difference? I nodded slowly. It's not the syllables, it's the relationship. Exactly, the name carries power because of who I am and what I did. These demons, they fell from heaven. They remember, they know my authority. They have no choice but to obey when my name is invoked by someone who belongs to me. Jesus placed a hand on my shoulder, and I felt strength flood through me. You need to go back, Marcus. Tell them. So many people are tormented by these forces, and they don't even realize it. They need to know about the one word. What if they don't believe me? I asked. I'm a doctor. They'll think I'm crazy. They'll say it was oxygen deprivation, hallucination, brain damage. They will feel the truth when they use my name with faith, Jesus said simply. Not all will believe, but some will, and those who do will be set free. He stepped back, and I suddenly felt the pull, like a cord attached to my body yanking me backward. It's not your time, Jesus said. Go back. The rushing sensation was overwhelming. I was being pulled through the darkness at impossible speed, the light of his presence fading behind me. And then, with a jolt that felt like being struck by lightning, I gasped awake. The ER lights were blinding. The paddles were on my chest. My colleagues were staring at me with expressions of shock and relief. "We got him back!" someone shouted. 8 minutes down, and we got him back. I was gasping, disoriented, my chest burning from the defibrillation. But I remembered every moment, every word. Jesus, I managed to croak out, Jesus saved me. Dr. Patterson leaned over me, checking my pupils. Marcus, you're okay. You had a severe cardiac event. You're going to be fine. Just rest. No, you don't understand. Jesus saved me. He's real. It's all real. They exchanged glances, the kind of glances medical professionals give each other when they think a patient is delirious. I didn't blame them. 3 days ago, I would have done the same thing, but I knew what I experienced wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't my brain misfiring. It was real. More real than anything I'd ever experienced in my entire life. The following days were a blur of recovery, tests, and well-meaning colleagues suggesting I talk to a psychiatrist. But something else started happening. At home, during my medical leave, I began feeling that oppressive presence again. The same weight, the same sense of being watched. Nightmares plagued me. Dark, suffocating dreams where I was back in that void. But this time, Jesus wasn't there. I woke up one night drenched in sweat, my heart racing, that familiar dread wrapping around me like chains. And then I remembered what Jesus had taught me. I sat up in bed, alone in my dark bedroom, and I spoke aloud. In the name of Jesus Christ, you have no authority here. Leave. The oppression vanished. Instantly, like a switch had been flipped. The air in the room felt lighter. The fear dissipated. I sat there in the silence, tears streaming down my face, overwhelmed by the reality of what had just happened. It worked. It actually worked. Since then, I've used that authority multiple times, not just for myself. I've prayed for patients who were suffering from what I now recognize as spiritual oppression. Anxiety that medication couldn't touch. Depression that therapy couldn't reach. Addictions that seemed to have supernatural strength. And when I've prayed with them, using the name of Jesus with authority, I've seen real results. People set free, chains broken, lives transformed. I'm telling you this today because you need to know. Some of you watching this right now are under spiritual attack, and you don't even realize it. You think it's just anxiety, just depression, just bad luck, just your personality. But there's more happening in the spiritual realm than most people understand. And there's one word that changes everything. One name that has absolute authority over every dark force, every demon, every power of hell. Jesus. Not as a magic spell, not as an incantation you mutter without meaning, but as the name of the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the one who defeated death itself and holds all authority in heaven and on earth. When you speak that name with faith, with understanding of who he is and what he's done, demons have no choice but to flee. They must obey. It's not optional for them. Here's what I want you to do. First, this only works if you have a relationship with Jesus. You can't just use his name like a weapon if you don't know him. The demons know the difference. They can tell who belongs to Jesus and who's just playing games. Second, when you're under spiritual attack, and you'll know it when you feel it, that oppression, that fear, that darkness that seems to have no natural source, speak his name with authority. In the name of Jesus Christ, leave. Say it out loud, mean it. Remember that you're not just speaking syllables, you're invoking the authority of the one who created the universe, who conquered death, who sits at the right hand of God. Third, remember that he already won the victory. On the cross, when he said, "It is finished," he meant it. The battle is already over. You're just enforcing the victory that's already been secured. I was a skeptic. I was a materialist. I believed only in what I could see, measure, and verify. But I encountered something that changed everything. I met the living God, and he taught me the one word that has power over darkness. If you've never called on the name of Jesus, I'm urging you to do it now. Not because I say so, but because he promised he would answer. He promised that whoever calls on his name will be saved. He answered me when I cried out in desperation. He'll answer you too. Because the name of Jesus isn't just a word. It's the word that created the universe. It's the name above every name. And demons know it. They fear it. They have no choice but to flee when it's spoken with faith and authority. You have that power. You have that authority. Not because of who you are, but because of who he is. Use it.